أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي يا رب زدني علما. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Achha students, today we are going to discuss about our topic, which is economies of scale. In the start I will discuss about its concept, its brief concept that will make you understand what is actually economies of scale. Economies of scale is a phenomena which we have to face, which a business have to face when we try to expand our business, when we try to increase our business output overall. So if we increase our output, there are several things which is happening to the cost of production. I repeat, the economies of scale is a concept related to the output and the cost, which is the average cost. So what will happen if we try to increase our output? What will happen to the cost? Now we are going to discuss that in economies of scale. So if we are increasing our quantity in the start of a business, we can discuss the diagram here also, that in the y-axis we have average cost, in the x-axis we have output, and here initially if we are producing quantity 1, yani Q1, let's suppose, so our average cost is AC1, and after that if we increase the output from Q1 to Q2, our average cost decreases, and then so on. At Q3 our average cost also decreases. At that time, when our cost of production, which means the average cost of production, is continuously decreasing with respect to increase in the output, that phenomena and that phase of production is called economies of scale. I repeat, in the time period where the quantity increases, the output of a firm or business increases, and it makes the average cost to diminish every time. So that phenomena, that phase of production is called economies of scale. So in graphically we can also understand here that Q1, Q2, Q3 till Q star, our average costs are decreasing, but at the point where Q star is producing, our average cost is at its minimum. Here at this point, this is the point where our average cost is at its minimum. This means now we cannot make our cost of production decrease by producing more output. This phenomena is called, at this point, before this point, when average cost is continuously diminishing with the passage, with the increasing in the quantity, this is called economies of scale. So there are several ways and causes by which a cost of production can decrease. There are two types of economies of scale. Some we can achieve through internal policies, through internal phenomena, and some are by the external phenomena, by the external factors which we can gain. Number one, if we are talking about the internal economies of scale, then how internal economies of scale can be achieved means how we can decrease the cost of production by using some internal factors. Number one, purchasing economies. In this phenomena, one of the example of purchasing economies of scale is that if we purchase the raw material or intermediate products in a bulk amount, so that reduces our cost of production. Number two, marketing economies of scale. In this second type of factor, rather hiring some other agencies, some other phenomena or some other outsourcing firms to market our business or product, we use our own resource to build up our own marketing strategies. Let's suppose we build our own vehicles, we build our own marketing campaigns or magazine or brochures or XYZ factors which can reduce our cost of production. Some firms buy the transport vehicle in which impose or they post their brand photos. So that is also the internal economies of scale, which is achieved by marketing through their own resources, actually. Financial economies of scale. If the finance or capital we can gain, if we are able to gain the financial capital, means the investment at a very low cost, although we know that cost of production to the finance or capital is somehow interest rate. If we borrow that finance, one of the examples is that if we borrow that finance from the bank, so that will charge interest rate to us. So if that somehow we are able to borrow that finance or take our finance from any institution or from any source of finance at a lower cost, that will also influence our cost of production. So that also reduces our cost of production. Let's suppose, for example, if a bank give us a free loan, if a government give us an interest-free loan, so that increases and boosts up the output and also decreases or diminishes the cost of production. Fourth, technical economies of scale. How we can elaborate that? In technical economies of scale, we try to improve, innovate or invent that technique of work which actually reduces the cost of production. Let's suppose if we produce or if a firm invent or discover or innovate a machinery which can produce relatively more output than the previous one, that actually decreases the cost of production. Risk bearing economies of scale. In this type of economies of scale in which we bear the risk, that we somehow produce a line of product, a chain of product, similar chain of product, line of product, such as, for example, if we are producing TV, LCDs, OLED, so we can also produce mobile phones, we can also produce let's suppose other home appliances XYZ. So if one product is not doing well in the market, the other products will be sold out. So that can be somehow we can diverse our risk factor of the business, which actually increases the overall sale by selling different types of product rather than selling only one product. Is more beneficial that we can sell different type of products in a similar chain of production. Let's suppose whether we sell laptops, whether we sell mobile phones, whether we sell out the LCDs or electronic items, they are all the electronic stuff. So we can all produce that if we are capable of doing that thing. So we should produce that, and whatever the circumstances of the market, we can sell out according to that situation. So these are the internal economies of scale. Now we are going towards external economies of scale, in which we will find out how we can decrease our cost of production. Average cost of production means by external factors. Number one, access to a skilled labor force. If we somehow capable to hire those labor which are more skilled, which are more innovative and more productive, so that somehow if we are, let's suppose the firms in more developed nation, they have more accurate, more we can say efficient production method. So if we somehow, let's suppose for example, if we somehow import that person to train our labor, so that will eventually spill over the effect of that knowledge, that technique, that innovation to our labor, and overall our labor will actually get productive, and that minimizes the cost of production. Now we have ancillary firms. These are the firms which actually support your business, that doesn't have the direct link with your business, but they have the indirect relationship with your business. Let's suppose for example, if you are a small firm and you do not do packaging by yourself, you produce the stuff and hire other firm to pack out or to make the printing stuff for your product packaging. So that somehow, if that firm is shifted or established near to your production area, so you can save the transportation cost. Or another example is that you have to transfer the fund, the amount of capital or the sales one place to another place, because you have your bank station, or you have your bank branch in which your bank account is available for your business is far away from your production area or your you can say outlet area. So you have to transport, you have to face the transport cost. But if that bank establishes or shifted near to your production area, near to your business area, so that transportation cost also minimizes, in which these other firms, these other businesses support your business to minimize your cost. Now we have other example is joint marketing benefits. Joint marketing benefit is somehow the benefit which is obtained by mutualizing, doing a mutual work to obtain a benefit. Somehow what that in past example I have discussed that about a Microsoft example with the Nokia. They establish a joint venture and produce a phone called a somehow phone that actually has the software from the Microsoft and hardware from the Nokia, that eventually reduces their cost of production and maximizes the profit. So this is the one of the example. Shared infrastructure in common area, in common business area, every business try to establish the facility for the better infrastructure for their own businesses, and somehow they collectively collaborate to make the infrastructure better, such as electricity, flow of electricity with no barriers, clean roads, maintained roads, security system. They all try to maintain these types of things, and other such as water and sewerage system or somehow banking system. They try to support that infrastructure in their locality where different businesses are located. So these are the example of external economies of scale. Now I am going to discuss the other side, the contradictory side of economies of scale, which is the diseconomies of scale. In diseconomies of scale, if we try to produce more output, you can see here in the graph, now after this point Q star, if we try to increase more output, that will eventually increase our cost of production, average cost of production again. That increases our cost of production again by increasing more output. So that phenomena in which we are trying to increase more output, Q4, Q5, Q6, Q7, our cost of production, average cost of production also increases, and that is not desirable for a business to go towards more cost of production, rather doing or producing at a minimum average cost point, which is Q star. So in this phenomena where quantity is increasing and that also causes to increase average cost of production, that phase of production is called diseconomies of scale. I will repeat, diseconomies of scale. It is the contradictory concept or the opposite concept of the economies of scale, in which if we increase the output, that decreases the average cost. But in the diseconomies of scale, if we increase the output, that will actually again increase the average cost of production. So we have now economies of scale from Q1 to Q3, diseconomies of scale from Q4 to Q7, and no economies of scale. I will repeat, no economies of scale at Q star. Means that we do not have a benefit by moving from this point forward or this point backward. I will repeat, if we are at this point, so we do not have any cost benefit. We cannot, in other sense, we cannot decrease our cost of production if we move forward. If we move forward from Q star, so our cost of production increases. If we move backward from Q star, so our cost of production is relatively higher than this point. This is the only point of average cost where if we produce the Q star quantity, let's suppose 100 units, so our cost of production, average cost of production will be at its minimum. So there are other factors
there are also some factors which involve or which push the businesses in the diseconomies of scale phase. This Q4 to Q7 diseconomies of scale phase, we have different types of factors which also pushes the business in this phase of production. Okay, in this I was discussing about the diseconomies of scale phenomena, in which if we try to increase our output, that will eventually also increases our average cost. So in this type of phase of production, why businesses go or involve or have to face this phase of production, in which if we increase more quantity, then it has to face more average cost. So obviously this is not the favorable condition for a business to produce or to somehow involve in this phase of production, which is in diseconomies of scale. So it means that Q4, Q5, Q6 or Q7, these types of quantities will never give you the cost at its minimum. This is the only point which is Q star, which is at its minimum and give you the minimum average cost at this specific quantity, which is Q star. Okay, so now if we are talking about some factors which are behind the diseconomies of scale phenomena, these are somehow management diseconomies of scale. If we are unable to manage that business properly, and somehow if we are unable to manage or hold or supervise that huge business in an efficient manner, so if we are unable to do that, that particular reason is called management diseconomies of scale. Second reason is labor diseconomies of scale. In somehow, if for example, if your labor gets outdated in the market, there are several other firms who are continuously improving their labor, training their labor, providing facility to their labor, and their labor gets improved day by day, time by time, and they are producing more efficient product at a minimum cost. But if our business is unable to make that change or update or qualification or training skill to our labor, so that labor or our labor gets outdated and will not compete in a market at a lower cost. So at that phenomena, if our labor is outdated, if we are labor unskilled, or if we are labor inefficient related to other labor in the market, so we will have to face labor diseconomies of scale. Labor diseconomies of scale, because somehow other businesses labor is trained, they are producing per unit cost at a very lower prices, but our labor is not efficiently trained, so they are producing more expensive per unit product, more cost of production at a single per unit product. So that is somehow the reason behind the labor diseconomies of scale. Last point in the diseconomies of scale is agglomerate diseconomies of scale. I will repeat, agglomerate diseconomies of scale. In agglomerate diseconomies of scale, this actually belongs to the phenomena in which a business try to expand itself in several types of businesses, such as, for example, if our business only produces clothing, and if myself involve in producing food also, I involve in producing electronic stuff also, so I do not have that experience to somehow involve in other types of businesses. If I involve in other types of businesses, that actually make our business less efficient, because somehow I do not have that experience to produce more efficiently, more beneficially according to the situation of a market. I only have the experience only related to the clothing. That's why I am unable to efficiently produce electronic item, food items or other items which I do not have the experience of production. So this is the concept of agglomeration diseconomies of scale, in which we have discussed about the concept of diseconomies of scale. So overall, in economies of scale, I summarize this concept. In economies of scale, we have, if we increase our quantity, that reduces average cost. In Q star, at Q star, we do not have to move forward or we do not have to move backward, because at this Q star our average cost is at its minimum. You can see here, you can compare here that this average cost is relatively lesser than the other average cost. Finally, we have this phase after the Q star, which is called diseconomies of scale, in which our cost of production continuously increases. By increasing quantity, we have to face more average cost every time, and we have discussed their reason, internal, external, and so on. Thank you.